She left him because she thought he was infertile, but he showed up with 5 children at her wedding. Jennifer felt her hands tremble as she held the bouquet of white roses. In just a few minutes, she would be married to Brandon, but a strange anguish gripped her heart. That's when the heavy wooden doors of St. Mary's Cathedral opened, with a sound that echoed through the entire nave. All the guests turned their heads at once, and Jennifer felt her blood run cold as she saw the figure standing at the entrance. It was Michael, her ex-boyfriend of 7 years, dressed in an impeccable navy blue suit. But what really caught everyone's attention was what he carried in his arms. 5 blonde babies, all dressed in little white outfits like tiny angels. Silence fell over Riverside Church in rural Pennsylvania. Not even the sound of cars outside could break that frozen moment in time. Jennifer watched as Michael slowly walked down the center aisle, each step echoing on the ancient stones of the century-old church. "Daddy? Is that her?" one of the children asked in a sweet voice, pointing directly at Jennifer. Brandon clenched his fist beside her, his face red with anger. "What kind of joke is this?" he muttered through gritted teeth, loud enough for some guests to hear. Michael stopped just a few feet from the altar, adjusting the babies in his arms. One of them began to whimper softly, and he rocked them gently to soothe them. "Jennifer," he said firmly, his voice thick with emotion. "These are our children." The bride felt her legs buckle. The bouquet slipped from her hands and hit the floor with a dull thud. The white roses scattered across the marble steps, some petals loosening and floating away in the draft from the still open door. "That's a lie!" Brandon shouted, stepping forward. "Jennifer, explain what's going on here." Father Patrick, a gray-haired man who had known Jennifer's family for decades, watched the scene unsure how to react. His hands trembled as he held the prayer book. Mrs. Barbara, Jennifer's mother, rose from the front pew, her face as pale as the altar cloth. "My daughter, what is this about?" Michael took a deep breath, looking straight into Jennifer's brown eyes, the same eyes he had loved for so long. "Remember when you donated eggs 4 years ago when we were struggling financially? You said it was just to help other families and earn some extra money." Jennifer nodded slowly, the memory washing over her like a wave. Those had been hard times, when Michael was still finishing his engineering degree, and she worked as a secretary at a small accounting firm. "Well," Michael continued, his voice breaking, "when you left me, thinking I was infertile, I retook all the tests. I found out the lab had mixed up the results. I was never infertile, Jennifer." Brandon scoffed angrily. "So what? What does that have to do with these kids?" "It has everything to do with it," Michael replied, now looking at the groom. "Because when I found out I could have children, I went to the clinic where Jennifer had donated her eggs. They were still there, frozen, waiting." Jennifer's heart raced. She was beginning to understand where this was going. "You didn't," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "I did," Michael confirmed. "I used your eggs with a surrogate. These 5 babies are biologically yours and mine. They're the children we dreamed of having together." Dear listener, if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. The revelation struck like lightning over everyone present. Mrs. Barbara had to lean on her husband's arm, Mr. Richard, who had worked at the same metal factory in town for 30 years. "Good heavens," the woman murmured, pressing a hand to her chest. "I'm a grandmother." One of the girls in Michael's arms, the brightest of them, looked at Jennifer with big, curious eyes. "Pretty mama," she said, stretching out her tiny arms. Brandon exploded. "This is absurd, Jennifer, we're leaving right now." "No," Jennifer said for the first time since Michael had entered the church. "I'm not going anywhere until I understand all of this." She slowly approached Michael, her wedding dress dragging across the cold church floor. When she got close enough, she could see the babies' little faces more clearly. What she saw left her speechless. They were like tiny versions of herself. The same brown eyes, the same nose shape, even the small dimple in the chin she had inherited from her maternal grandmother. "What are their names?" she asked, her voice trembling. Michael smiled for the first time since entering the church. "This one is Emma," he said, pointing to the girl who had called Jennifer Mama. "This is Ethan," he gestured to the only boy, And these are the other three: Olivia, Sophia, and Ava. Those are names we picked together, Jennifer whispered, tears welling in her eyes. You remember our talks about what we'd name our children? I remember every word, Michael replied softly. Brandon couldn't take it anymore and shouted for the whole church to hear. Enough of this nonsense. Jennifer, you choose right now, either come with me or stay with this ridiculous charade. Mrs. Barbara stepped up to her son-in-law, her index finger pointed at his face. Listen here, Brandon. Those children could be my grandchildren. You will not yell in God's house, and certainly not at my daughter. You don't understand, Mrs. Barbara. Brandon tried to defend himself. This is clearly a scam. Where are the documents proving these kids are Jennifer's? Michael adjusted the babies in his arms and looked calmly at Brandon. I brought everything, he said, nodding toward a folder he'd left on the last pew. Egg donation contract, DNA tests, birth certificates, it's all there. Silence fell over the church again. Guests whispered among themselves, some discreetly snapping photos with their phones, others simply watching the scene unfold like something out of a soap opera. Jennifer looked at Brandon, then at Michael, and finally at the 5 babies staring at her with innocent curiosity. I need to see those documents, she said at last. Brandon gripped her arm tightly. Jennifer, don't be naive. This is obviously a setup to ruin our wedding. Let me go, Brandon, she pleaded, but he didn't release her. I said, let me go, she shouted, startling everyone. Mr. Richard stood from the pew, his posture stiff, like a man who had served in the military in his youth. Brandon, take your hand off my daughter, now. The groom let go of Jennifer's arm, but his eyes burned with fury. Father Patrick finally decided to intervene. My children, why don't we talk in the sacristy? We don't need to settle this in front of everyone. No, Father, Jennifer said, surprising everyone again. I want it to be right here. Everyone who came to my wedding deserves to know the truth. She walked to the pew where Michael had left the folder. With trembling hands, she opened it and began examining the documents. The first paper she saw was a copy of the egg donation contract she had signed 4 years earlier. Her own signature was there, bearing witness to a moment in her life she had nearly forgotten. My God, she whispered, this is real. Keep reading, Michael encouraged gently. The next document was a DNA test report. Jennifer didn't understand all the technical terms, but the result was clear: 99.9% probability of biological maternity. Her legs gave out, and she had to lean on the pew for support. Brandon tried to approach, but this time it was Mrs. Barbara who stopped him. You stay right where you are, young man. My daughter needs to process this in peace. Mrs. Barbara, you can't be on his side, Brandon protested. Look what this man is doing. He's destroying our marriage. What marriage, Brandon? Asked a weak voice from the back of the church. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. It was Mrs. Elizabeth, Brandon's mother, a white-haired woman who had always been very reserved. Mom, what are you doing here? I thought you were too sick to come. The elderly woman walked slowly down the aisle, leaning on a dark wooden cane. I was sick, yes. Sick of keeping this secret, she said, her voice growing stronger with each word. Sick of watching my son lie to a girl as good as Jennifer. Brandon turned pale. Mom, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the vasectomy you had 5 years ago, Brandon. I'm talking about how you lied to Jennifer, saying you wanted a big family when you knew you could never give her children. The world seemed to stop around Jennifer. She slowly turned to face Brandon, who was now completely ashen. Is it true? She asked, her voice barely escaping her throat. Brandon opened and closed his mouth several times, like a fish out of water. Jennifer, I can explain. Is it true? She shouted this time. Yes, he finally admitted, his head hanging low. But I was going to tell you after the wedding. I was going to say we might need to adopt. Jennifer felt a rage she had never experienced before rise from the depths of her chest. She had left Michael because she thought he couldn't give her children, and now she discovered she had gotten involved with someone who had deliberately made himself infertile. You knew, she said, her voice heavy with pain. You knew how much I wanted to be a mother. You knew it was my biggest dream, and yet you lied to me. Jennifer, I love you. We could have been happy, just the two of us. Just the two of us, she laughed bitterly. Brandon, you've known me for 2 years. Haven't you figured out that I've always dreamed of a house full of children? Mrs. Elizabeth stepped closer, reaching the altar. I'm sorry, my dear, she said, tears in her eyes. I tried to convince my son to tell you the truth. I told him you deserved to know, but he wouldn't listen. Michael watched everything in silence, still holding the 5 babies. One of the girls had fallen asleep in his arms, and he rocked her gently. Jennifer looked at him, then at the children, and something inside her broke, not from pain, but from an emotion she couldn't name. Can I hold one of them? She asked timidly. Michael smiled and handed her little Emma, who was awake and looking around curiously. When Jennifer cradled the child, she felt something she had never experienced before, an instant, profound love that seemed to come from a primal place within her. Hi, little one, she whispered, stroking the girl's face. She stopped. How should she introduce herself? As a mother, as a stranger? Your mommy, Emma said simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Brandon took a step forward, making one last attempt. Jennifer, don't let your emotions take over. These children barely know you. Are you really going to throw away 2 years over a whim? A whim? Jennifer looked at him in disbelief. Brandon, these are my children. Biologically, my children. They're just eggs. You donated eggs. That doesn't make you their mother. Before Jennifer could respond, Michael finally exploded. Just eggs? Are you out of your mind, man? Jennifer carried these babies in her womb for 9 months through the genetic material she herself produced. She is their mother. You're getting things mixed up, Brandon tried to argue. It was the surrogate who carried them. Actually, said Michael, taking a deep breath, there was no surrogate. Everyone fell silent, waiting for an explanation. What do you mean by that? Asked Jennifer, holding Emma tighter. Michael placed the other 4 babies on the front pew, where Mrs. Barbara and Mr. Richard immediately stepped forward to help hold them. Jennifer, do you remember that news report we watched together about 6 years ago, about that experimental procedure where men could carry babies? She nodded slowly, a vague memory coming back to her. It was just a test back then, Michael continued. But when I found out about the eggs, when I realized I could have our children, I sought out the doctors developing this technique. Jennifer's jaw dropped. You didn't do that? I did, he said, lifting his shirt slightly to reveal a small scar on his abdomen. I underwent an experimental surgery. I was the one who carried our children, Jennifer. For 9 months they grew inside me. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now continuing, the revelation hit everyone like a punch to the gut. Mrs. Barbara crossed herself 3 times in a row, murmuring prayers. Mr. Richard automatically removed his hat, a gesture he always made when deeply moved. My son, said Father Patrick, clearly emotional. This is extraordinary. Brandon shook his head in denial. That's impossible. Men can't get pregnant. Technically they can, Michael explained. It's a very complex and risky procedure, but possible. I had to take hormones for months and undergo several preparatory surgeries. It was the hardest time of my life. Jennifer looked at him as if seeing him for the first time. Why did you do this? Why go through all that? Michael stepped closer to her, his eyes filled with a tenderness she had forgotten existed. Because you were the love of my life, Jennifer. Because I knew you wanted to be a mother more than anything in the world. And because, even after you left me, I still hoped that one day we could be a family. Tears streamed freely down her face now, smudging the careful makeup that had taken hours to apply. You risked your life, she whispered. Risked your life to give life to our children. Every second was worth it, he replied. When I heard Emma's first cry, when I saw all 5 little faces for the first time, I knew I'd done the right thing. Brandon was growing desperate, realizing he was losing Jennifer forever. Jennifer, think about this. You barely know these children. How will you raise 5 babies alone? She won't raise them alone, said a firm voice. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. It was Michael, but this time his tone was different, more resolute. "Jennifer," he said, kneeling right there at the altar in front of all the guests. "I didn't come here to ruin your wedding. I came because our children deserve to know their mother. But now, seeing you here, seeing how you look at them," he paused, swallowing hard, "I still love you. I never stopped loving you. And if you give me a second chance, I promise we'll raise these children together, just like we always dreamed." The church was utterly silent. Even the babies seemed to sense the importance of the moment, watching everything with wide, curious eyes. Jennifer looked at Brandon, who was red with anger. Then she looked at the 5 babies, who were little pieces of her scattered across the world. Finally, she looked at Michael, the man who had literally carried her children inside him. "Brandon," she said at last, "you lied to me from the very beginning of our relationship. You made me believe in a future you knew you couldn't give me." "Jennifer, please." "No," she interrupted. "There's no excuse for this. You knew how much children meant to me." She turned to Michael, still kneeling on the ground. "And you," she said, her voice trembling, "you did the impossible, literally the impossible." Michael bowed his head, awaiting her verdict. "But you hurt me too," she continued. "When the doctors gave you the wrong results, when I ended our relationship, you could have fought harder. You could have insisted we retake the tests." "You're right," he admitted. "I should have fought harder for us back then." Jennifer took a deep breath, feeling the weight of a decision that would change her life forever. "But the difference," she said, looking into his eyes, "is that you did it out of love. Everything you did was out of love for me and our children." She reached out to help him up. "Get up, Michael. You don't have to kneel." When he stood, she looked directly into his eyes. "I never stopped loving you either," she confessed. "I tried. Believe me, I tried. But you've always been my soulmate." Brandon exploded. "This is ridiculous. Jennifer, you're making an emotional decision. Think about what you're doing." "I am thinking," she replied calmly. "I'm thinking that 2 hours ago, I was about to marry a man who lied to me about something fundamental, and now I'm here with the father of my 5 children, who risked his own life to bring them into this world." She removed the ring Brandon had placed on her finger during the rehearsal and held it out to him. "Brandon, I'm sorry, but I can't marry you." "You'll regret this," he shouted, snatching the ring. "You'll regret throwing away a stable future for a fantasy." "Maybe," Jennifer said, "but it'll be my regret, my choice." Brandon looked around at the guests, as if hoping someone would take his side. But everyone was clearly on Jennifer's side. Even some of his own family members shook their heads in disapproval. Realizing he had completely lost, Brandon stormed out of the church, followed by a handful of his relatives. Father Patrick approached the altar, still visibly shaken by what he had witnessed. "Well," he said, trying to bring some normalcy to the situation, "in 40 years of ministry, I've never seen anything like this." Mrs. Barbara walked up to Jennifer, holding one of the babies. "My dear," she said tearfully, "are you sure about this?" Jennifer looked at the child in her mother's arms, then at the other 4 being cared for by relatives and friends who had stepped in to help. "I'm sure, Mom. For the first time in a long time, I'm sure about something." Michael approached her hesitantly. "Jennifer, I don't expect us to figure everything out today. I know it's a lot to process." "It is a lot," she agreed. "But some things don't have to be complicated." She moved closer to him, standing just inches away. "I love you, Michael. I've always loved you. And these," she said, looking at the 5 children, "are our kids, our family." "Does that mean—" "It means I'm done running from what my heart has always known," she replied. "We're a family. We always have been." The guests began to applaud, moved by the unexpected turn of events. Mrs. Barbara cried tears of joy, Mr. Richard smiled proudly at his daughter, and even Father Patrick seemed relieved by the happy ending. "And now," Michael asked, "what do we do with everyone here?" Jennifer looked around the cathedral, seeing the relatives and friends who had come for what should have been her wedding to Brandon. "Now," she said with a smile, "we throw a party to celebrate our family." "But you're in a wedding dress," he pointed out, laughing. Then we'll have to improvise, she replied, picking up one of the girls. How about we get married today? Michael's eyes widened. Seriously, she confirmed. Father Patrick, would you be willing to marry us right now? The priest looked at them, then at the 5 children, and smiled. It would be an honor, my children, an honor. And so, in one of the most unusual stories the small town of Riverside had ever witnessed, Jennifer married Michael on the very morning she was supposed to marry Brandon. The 5 babies were the honorary attendants, carried by proud grandparents and hastily assembled godparents, but life, as always, still had a few surprises in store for them. 3 months after the wedding, as they were adjusting to the routine of caring for 5 babies at once, Jennifer was at the local supermarket when she bumped into someone familiar in the diaper aisle. "Melissa," she said, recognizing an old co-worker. "Jennifer!" the woman exclaimed. "Wow, I heard about what happened at your wedding. The whole town talked about it. How is it taking care of 5 babies?" "Exhausting but wonderful," Jennifer replied, smiling. "Michael is an amazing father. I think he understands better than I do sometimes. After all, he was the one who carried them." Melissa hesitated before speaking. "Jennifer, can I ask you something? It might be nosy, but go ahead. How was it for Michael? I mean, physically. It must have been so hard for a man to go through a pregnancy." Jennifer paused. It was a question she herself had asked Michael many times, but he always changed the subject when she tried to bring up the medical details. "To be honest, Melissa, he doesn't like talking about it. I know it was really hard, but whenever I ask for details, he avoids the topic." "I see," Melissa said. "It's just I work at the lab where you had the kids' DNA tests done and—" She stopped, as if realizing she had said something she shouldn't have. "And what?" Jennifer asked, a strange feeling forming in her stomach. Nothing, Melissa said quickly. "Forget I said anything." "Melissa, please," Jennifer insisted. "What were you going to say?" The woman looked around, as if checking if anyone was listening. "Jennifer, I shouldn't be telling you this. I could even lose my job if anyone finds out." "I won't tell anyone," Jennifer promised. "But now you've got me worried. What's in the kids' test results?" Melissa took a deep breath. "When we processed the DNA tests, some things stood out. Dr. Williams, the lab's geneticist, made a few comments." "What kind of comments?" "He said it was really strange that all 5 embryos from the IVF took successfully. The chances of that happening naturally are, well, practically impossible." Jennifer felt a chill in her stomach. "What are you trying to tell me?" "I'm saying maybe you should talk to the doctor who oversaw Michael's pregnancy. Some things in the tests don't add up with a natural quintuplet pregnancy." Jennifer arrived home with her mind swirling with questions. Michael was in the living room, playing with the kids on the colorful rug they had bought just for them. "How was the store?" he asked, smiling. "Did you find that diaper rash cream Emma needed?" "Michael," she said, sitting on the couch, "we need to talk." Something in her tone made him immediately tense. "Did something happen?" "I ran into Melissa from the lab today. She told me a few things about the children's test results." Michael visibly paled. "What kind of things?" "She said it's practically impossible for 5 embryos to develop naturally at the same time. That some things in the tests don't add up." Michael stayed silent for a long moment, watching the children playing happily on the floor. "Michael," Jennifer insisted, "what's going on?" He took a deep breath, as if a tremendous weight rested on his shoulders. "Jennifer, before I tell you anything, I want you to know that I love you and these children more than anything in life." "You're scaring me," she said. "Just tell me the truth." Michael stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the backyard where they'd set up a playground for when the children grew older. "The truth is, it wasn't exactly how I told it at church." Jennifer felt her heart race. "What do you mean?" "I really did use your eggs, that's true. And I really went through an experimental medical procedure, but—" He paused as if struggling to find the words. "But what, Michael?" "But I didn't carry them all myself." Jennifer rose from the couch, confused. "I don't understand." Michael turned to face her. "Jennifer, the experimental procedure did allow a man to carry a child, yes, but 1 child at a time, not 5. "Then how?" "I found 4 other women who were willing to be surrogates. Each carried one of the babies, but to have them born as siblings at the same time, we had to coordinate the pregnancies, so the deliveries happened in the same period. Jennifer sat back down, trying to process the information. "You lied to me," she said quietly. "I didn't lie," he defended. "I omitted part of the truth. I really did carry Emma. She was born from me, but the other 4 were born from the surrogates." "Why didn't you tell me this at church?" Michael moved closer but kept a respectful distance. "Because I was desperate, Jennifer. When I heard you were getting married, I panicked. I thought if I told the whole truth, you'd think it was all too calculated, too manipulated." "And wasn't it?" "It was and it wasn't," he admitted. "It was calculated in that I planned everything so you could meet them. But it wasn't manipulated because my love for you and these children is real." Jennifer looked at the 5 babies, who kept playing innocently, unaware of the adults' conversation. "The other women, where are they?" "They fulfilled the contract, received the agreed payment and moved on with their lives. Everything was done legally, with proper medical supervision." "And why did you undergo the procedure to carry one of them?" Michael smiled sadly. "Because I wanted to feel in my own skin at least part of what you should have felt. I wanted to be physically connected to at least one of our children in the most intimate way possible." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Jennifer stayed silent for several minutes, watching the children. Emma, the one born from Michael, was trying to reach a toy and making adorable little effort noises. "Are they different?" she finally asked. "I mean, genetically?" "No," Michael answered. "All were conceived with your eggs and my sperm. Genetically, they're full sisters. The different surrogates didn't change that. And do you have contact with those women?" "None," he assured. "It was a contract condition. They couldn't have contact with us after the birth, and we couldn't have contact with them." Jennifer stood up and walked over to where the children were playing. She bent down and picked up little Ethan in her arms, then Olivia, then Sophia, then Ava. Last, she picked up Emma. "Can I tell which one was born from you?" she asked. "I don't know," Michael answered honestly. "After they were born, even I couldn't tell anymore. To me, they're all equally my daughters." Jennifer nodded, understanding. "Michael, I get why you left that part out. I know you were desperate, but I shouldn't have kept it from you," he finished. "You deserved to know the whole truth from the start." "Yes," she agreed, "especially because now we're married. There can't be secrets between us. Is there anything else you want to know?" Jennifer thought for a moment. "How much did it cost?" "The whole process, I mean." Michael hesitated. "It was expensive, very expensive." "How much?" "I sold my house, my car, took out loans. I spent all my savings and still ended up in debt." Jennifer looked around the simple house they were living in, which belonged to his parents. "Is that why we're staying here with your parents?" "Yes," he admitted, "but it's okay. I'm working to pay off the debts. In 2 years, maybe 3, I can clear everything and we can have our own place." "You did all this," she said, shaking her head in admiration. "Spent everything you had, went into debt, went through risky medical procedures, and I'd do it all again," he assured her. "For you and for them, I'd do it all again." Jennifer looked into his eyes and saw absolute sincerity. Despite the omission, despite hiding part of the truth, she could see it had all been done out of love. "We need to talk about money," she said. "I want to help pay off those debts." "Jennifer, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," she insisted. "These are our daughters. These are our debts. We'll face this together." Michael smiled, clearly relieved. "There's one more thing I haven't told you yet," he said. Jennifer sighed. "Another one." "This one's good," he said, laughing. "When I was organizing the whole process, I found out you'd donated eggs twice. The second time, 15 eggs were frozen. So I only used 5. There are still 10 of your eggs frozen at the clinic." Jennifer's eyes widened. "Are you telling me we could have 10 more kids?" "Theoretically, yes," he said, laughing at her expression. "But I thought it was better to start slow." Slow, she exclaimed. 5 babies at once is slow. By my standards, yes, he joked. Despite everything, Jennifer couldn't help but laugh. It was absurd, it was complicated, but it was their life now. So, she said, let's set some ground rules for the future. What kind of rules? First, no more secrets or omissions. If we're having more kids, I want to know exactly how the process will go. Agreed, said Michael. And second? Second, next time I carry the babies. What you did was amazing, but now it's my turn to feel them growing inside me. That can be arranged, he agreed, smiling. And third, she continued, we wait at least 2 years before even thinking about expanding the family. 5 babies are more than enough for now. 2 years sounds fair, Michael agreed. That night, after putting the 5 children to bed, Jennifer and Michael sat on his parents' porch, drinking coffee and watching the stars. Do you regret it? Michael suddenly asked. Regret what? Calling off your wedding to Brandon, choosing this complicated life with me and 5 babies. Jennifer thought for a moment before answering. Michael, 3 months ago I was about to marry a man who lied to me about something fundamental, a man who never loved me enough to give me what I wanted most in life. She turned to look at him. Now I'm married to the man who literally moved mountains to give me not just what I wanted, but far more than I ever dreamed of. 5 beautiful, healthy children, a husband who truly loves me. And a lot of debt, he added, laughing. And a lot of debt, she agreed, laughing too, but debts made out of love. And debts will pay off together. So you don't regret it? Never, she answered without hesitation. This is the life I always wanted, Michael. I just didn't know it was possible. They sat in silence for a few minutes, simply enjoying the peace of the night and the feeling of being together again. Can I ask you something now? Said Jennifer. Of course. What was it like for you? Carrying Emma, I mean. How was the experience? Michael took a moment to answer, as if reliving those months. It was transformative, he finally said. At first it was really strange. My body was changing in ways I wasn't prepared to accept. The hormones made me emotionally unstable. But you never thought about giving up? I did many times, he admitted, especially in the first few months, when I couldn't feel her moving yet. It all felt too surreal. And when you started feeling her? Michael smiled, his face lighting up at the memory. When I felt Emma's first kick, I cried for 2 hours straight. That was the moment everything became real for me. She was there, inside me, growing, developing. It must have been incredible. It was terrifying and incredible at the same time, he said. Terrifying because I was in completely unknown territory, incredible because I was part of a miracle. And the birth? The birth was intense, he said, laughing. I definitely gained a whole new respect for women after that experience. Jennifer laughed too. And you'd really do it all over again? For you? For our family? Without a doubt, he answered. But next time, it's your turn. Next time, she corrected, we'll plan better, and we'll be honest with each other from the start. Promise, said Michael, holding out his hand. Jennifer squeezed it, sealing the agreement. Now, she said, standing up, let's get some sleep. Tomorrow we'll have 5 babies waking up at dawn wanting bottles. I think Ava will wake up first, said Michael. She has a very precise internal clock. How do you know these things about them? Asked Jennifer, impressed. 2 years taking care of them alone teaches you to recognize every pattern, he explained. Sophia always wants the right side of the crib. Ethan only falls asleep if there's some background noise. Olivia wakes up if there's any light in the room. And Emma? Emma is the easiest of all fun, he said fondly. She just wants to be held. Doesn't matter by who, she just wants to be close to someone. Jennifer smiled, imagining what it would be like to learn all these little quirks as the children grew. Michael? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For never giving up on us. For doing the impossible so we could be a family. Michael moved closer and kissed her gently. Thank you for giving me a second chance. And so, under the starry sky of Riverside, The family's new life officially began, one that fate had taken its time forming, but was finally complete. 6 months later, when the children were starting to crawl and the house was in constant motion, Jennifer got a call that would change their lives once again. "Hello?" she answered, holding Ethan in one arm while trying to stop Emma from pulling the cat's tail with the other. "Jennifer? It's Melissa, from the lab." "Hi, Melissa. How are you?" "I'm good, thanks." Jennifer, I called because something happened that I think you should know." A chill ran through Jennifer's stomach. I had already learned that when Melissa called with lab results, it was usually something important. "What happened?" "Remember we talked about the children's tests, about the inconsistencies Dr. Williams noticed?" "I do." "Well, he decided to investigate further. He reran some tests with samples we had stored. And, Jennifer, you need to come here with Michael. There's something we need to discuss in person." "Melissa, you're scaring me. Can't you tell me over the phone?" "It's not a conversation for the phone. Can you come this afternoon?" Jennifer looked around the house, seeing the 5 children scattered across the living room in various states of drowsiness and restlessness. "We'll have to bring the kids." "That's fine. Dr. Williams said it's important they come too." When Michael got home from work, Jennifer was waiting with all 5 children already settled in the Quint stroller they had bought. "Did something happen?" he asked, noticing her worried expression. "Melissa called. She wants us to go to the lab. Said Dr. Williams found something about the children's tests." Michael paled slightly. "What kind of thing?" "She wouldn't say over the phone," Jennifer replied. But from how she sounded, it seemed serious. The lab was downtown, in a small but modern building. Dr. Williams greeted them personally, a man in his 50s with graying hair and thick-rimmed glasses. "Jennifer, Michael," he said warmly, "and these must be the famous quintuplets." "Doctor," Jennifer said anxiously, "Melissa mentioned you found something important about our test results." "Yes, I did," he confirmed, gesturing to a meeting room. "Shall we sit?" "This might take a while." They settled into the room, the 5 children arranged in their strollers. Dr. Williams opened a folder full of papers and charts. "When you brought the children in for DNA testing, a few things stood out to me," he began. "Mainly the fact that 5 embryos developed simultaneously." "You mentioned that to Melissa before," Michael said. "Yes, but I decided to look deeper," the doctor continued. "I reran some more specific tests and found something interesting." He pulled a sheet from the folder. "This is the result of the first DNA test we did, confirming you're both the biological parents of all 5 children." "Right," Jennifer said. "And this," he said, pulling out another sheet, "is the result of a more detailed test I ran afterward." Jennifer and Michael leaned in to look at the papers, but the numbers and codes made no sense to them. "Doctor, can you explain in plain terms?" Michael asked. Dr. Williams removed his glasses and cleaned them carefully before answering. "What I found is that, while all 5 children are biologically yours, they aren't exactly siblings in the traditional sense." "What do you mean?" Jennifer asked. "They were conceived using your eggs and sperm, that's true, but not at the same time." Michael and Jennifer exchanged confused glances. "Doctor, I don't think we understand," Jennifer said. Dr. Williams sighed and leaned back in his chair. "What I'm trying to say is that these 5 children were conceived at different times, weeks, maybe even months apart." "But that's impossible," Michael protested. "They were all born at the same time." "They were, yes," the doctor agreed. "But that was only possible because the embryos were frozen at different times and then implanted simultaneously so the pregnancies would occur together." Jennifer felt her head begin to spin. "What are you trying to tell us?" Dr. Williams looked directly at her. "I'm saying that both of you were producing genetic material that was used to conceive these children over a period of time. It wasn't a single fertilization that resulted in quintuplets." "But Michael only went through one procedure," said Jennifer. "And I only donated eggs once." "Actually," said Dr. Williams, looking at Michael, "based on the tests I ran, I can confirm there were at least 3 different sperm collections. And from the eggs, I can verify there were 2 donations. Jennifer turned to Michael, who was clearly uncomfortable. Michael? She said slowly. What is he talking about? Michael lowered his head, as if caught in yet another omission. Jennifer, I can explain it. I hope you can, she said, her voice beginning to harden, because I'm starting to feel like our entire story has been a lie. Dr. Williams sensed the tension in the air and stood up. Perhaps it's best if I let you 2 talk privately, he said. I'll be in my office if you need any more information. When they were alone in the room, Jennifer looked directly into Michael's eyes. Now you're going to tell me the whole truth, from the beginning, without leaving anything out. Michael took a deep breath as if preparing for a painful confession. Jennifer, when you left me, I was devastated, completely devastated. I already knew that. But what you don't know is that I started looking for ways to prove I could have children long before I found out about your eggs. What do you mean? I started donating sperm to a genetic bank, he admitted, hoping that if you ever changed your mind, I'd have concrete proof I was fertile. Jennifer stared at him in disbelief. You donated sperm? Multiple times, he confirmed. And when I found out about your eggs, I used some of the material I donated to conceive the children. How many times, Michael? 3 times, he admitted. Once for Emma, the one I carried, and twice for the other 4. And you didn't think it was important to tell me. I thought it would complicate things, he defended himself. The important part was that they were our daughters, not exactly when they were conceived. Jennifer stood up and began pacing the small room. Michael, do you realize that with every conversation we have, I find out you've kept something important from me? I know, and I'm sorry for that, but there's no but that justifies this, she interrupted. We're married. We're a family. There can't be secrets between us. You're right, he admitted. Completely right. Jennifer stopped pacing and looked at the 5 children, sleeping peacefully in their strollers, unaware of the drama unfolding around them. Is there anything else you haven't told me? She asked wearily. Michael hesitated for a moment, and that hesitation was enough for Jennifer to know the answer was yes. What now? She asked, exhausted. The dates, he said quietly. What dates? The dates I donated sperm. Jennifer waited for him to continue. The first was 2 days after you broke up with me. The second was a month later. The third was 6 months after. And the last egg donation you made was a week before you started dating Brandon. Jennifer felt as if she'd been punched in the stomach. You're telling me that? I'm saying at least one of our daughters was conceived when you were already with another man, he confirmed. Technically, you were already in another relationship when she was created. Jennifer sank heavily into the chair, trying to process this information. Which one? She finally asked. Olivia, Michael answered. She was conceived with the last batch of eggs you donated and the last sperm collection I made. This means that while you were getting to know Brandon, trying to build a new life, I was using your genetic material to create a child of our own, he finished. And I know it seems manipulative and obsessive, but I couldn't accept that we were over. Jennifer looked at little Olivia, who slept peacefully in her stroller, one tiny fist curled near her face. You did this without my knowledge, she said slowly. You used my genetic material to conceive a child without my consent. Technically, you had consented when you donated the eggs, Michael defended himself. The contract stated they could be used for fertilization. But it didn't say they could be used by you, Jennifer exploded. I donated those eggs to help unknown couples, not for my obsessive ex-boyfriend to use them to try and win me back. You're right, Michael admitted. It was wrong of me. Completely wrong. It was more than wrong, Jennifer said, anger clear in her voice. It was almost abuse. The word hung heavy in the air between them. Michael paled completely. Jennifer, I never thought of it that way. How did you think of it? She asked. You used my genetic material without my specific permission to create children I didn't even know existed. I thought I was fighting for us, he said desperately. I thought I was building a family for when you realized you loved me. That's not fighting for us, Michael, she said, tears beginning to fall. That's manipulation. That's obsession. Silence filled the room. The only sounds were the soft noises of the 5 sleeping children. "And now?" Michael finally asked. "What do we do now?" Jennifer looked at him, then at the children, then back at him. "Now I need to think," she said. "I need to process all of this. Jennifer, please don't let this destroy our family." "Our family?" She laughed bitterly. "What family, Michael? A family built on lies and omissions? A family where I found out my husband used my genetic material without my consent?" "They're our daughters," he insisted. "No matter how they were conceived, they're our daughters." "I know they are," Jennifer said, her voice breaking. "And that's why this is so complicated, because I love these children more than anything. But I don't know if I can stay married to someone capable of what you did." Michael knelt before her, just as he had in the church months earlier. "Jennifer, please, give me a chance to fix this. Give me a chance to show I can be the husband you deserve." "How?" she asked. "How will you fix the fact that you used my genetic material without my permission? How will you fix all the lies and omissions?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But I'll find a way. So I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you if I have to." Jennifer looked at him for a long moment, seeing the desperate sincerity in his eyes. "Michael, get up," she said wearily. "Nothing will be solved by you kneeling." He rose slowly. "Let's go home," she said. "I need to process all of this, and you're going to give me space to think." "Of course," he agreed quickly. "All the space you need." In the week following their conversation in the lab, Michael's parents' house became a silent battleground. Jennifer cared for the children with dedication, but barely spoke to her husband. She slept in the guest room, claiming the girls were too restless at night and she needed to stay close to them. Mrs. Barbara, who had temporarily moved in to help with the babies, watched the situation with a heavy heart. One morning, while Michael was at work and the children slept, she approached her daughter. "My daughter," she said, sitting beside Jennifer in the kitchen, "do you want to talk about what's going on?" Jennifer looked at her mother, her eyes red from crying during sleepless nights. "Mom, I don't know what to do," she confessed. "I love Michael. I love these children, but I feel betrayed." "Betrayed how?" "He used my genetic material without me knowing, Mom. It's like I don't know how to explain it. It's like he used my body without my permission." Mrs. Barbara nodded understandingly. "I get why you're upset, sweetheart. What he did was truly wrong." "And it wasn't just that," Jennifer continued. "It was the lies, the omissions. Every time we talk, I find out he hid something important. But do you believe he did it all out of love?" Jennifer let out a deep sigh. "I do, Mom, and that's what makes it so hard. If it had been out of malice, making a decision would be easy. But it was out of an obsessive, possessive love, one that didn't respect my boundaries." "And the children?" Jennifer glanced toward the bedroom where the 5 of them were sleeping. "The children are innocent in all this. They didn't ask to be born this way. And I love them more than anything, Mom. They're my kids, no matter how they were conceived." "So the issue isn't the children," Mrs. Barbara observed. "The issue is whether you can forgive Michael and trust him again." "Exactly," Jennifer confirmed, "and I honestly don't know if I can." That afternoon, as Jennifer was feeding Ethan his bottle, she heard the doorbell ring. Mrs. Barbara went to answer it and returned with an unfamiliar woman in her 40s, her brown hair tied back in a ponytail. "Jennifer," Mrs. Barbara said, "this is Stephanie. She says she needs to talk to you about the children." Jennifer felt her stomach tighten. Another surprise? "Who are you?" she asked, trying to stay calm. "My name is Stephanie Johnson," the woman replied. "I was one of the surrogates who carried one of your daughters." Jennifer nearly dropped the bottle. "What do you mean? Michael said there was no more contact." "There shouldn't have been," Stephanie confirmed. "But when I heard you two were having difficulties, I decided I needed to talk to you. How did you know we were having difficulties?" Stephanie hesitated. "Because I work at Dr. Williams' lab. I'm a technician there. I overheard your conversation last week." Jennifer stood up, still holding Ethan. "You overheard our conversation?" "Not intentionally," Stephanie defended herself. "But the walls are thin, and when I heard Michael's name and the talk about the children, I couldn't help but listen." "And why did you decide to come here?" Stephanie sat on the edge of the couch, clearly nervous. Because there are things about the children's gestation that you don't know. Things Michael didn't tell you, but that I think you deserve to know. Jennifer felt a wave of exhaustion. More secrets. What else did he hide? Stephanie took a deep breath. Jennifer, during my pregnancy, Michael visited me every week, not just to check on the baby's development, but to talk about you. Talk about me how? He told me about the two of you, about who you were, the dreams you had together, how he still loved you. It was clear he was obsessed with you. Jennifer sat back down, her legs weak. Go on. He asked me to record the baby's heartbeat, said he wanted to play it for you when the time came. He also asked for ultrasound photos, videos of the baby moving. He was documenting the whole pregnancy, Jennifer murmured. More than that, Stephanie continued. He was planning every detail of how he'd introduce you to the children. Everything was calculated, Jennifer. From the moment he found out about your marriage to how he showed up at the church. Jennifer felt nausea rising. How long before my wedding did he find out? 6 months, answered Stephanie. He found out through a mutual friend, and that's when he sped up the whole process so the children would be born close to your wedding date. He manipulated the timing of the births. Yes, confirmed Stephanie. The other surrogates were induced a few days before or after, so all the children would be born in the same week, all to cause the biggest impact at the church. Jennifer put her hand to her forehead, feeling a terrible headache. Why are you telling me this? Stephanie looked directly into her eyes. Because I'm a mother too, Jennifer. I have 2 children, and I know what it's like to love a child more than anything in the world. But I also know a relationship built on lies and manipulation can't work. Do you think I should leave, Michael? I think you should make your decision based on the full truth, replied Stephanie. And the truth is Michael orchestrated all of this. Every detail was planned to force you into a situation where you'd have no choice but to stay with him. After Stephanie left, Jennifer locked herself in the room with the 5 children. She sat on the floor, in the middle of the colorful rug, watching the babies playing around her. Emma crawled toward her and tried to climb into her lap. Ethan laughed to himself, playing with his own feet. Olivia, Sophia, and Ava were stacking toy blocks, knocking them down and starting over. What do I do now? She asked the children, as if they could answer. As if understanding the question, Emma stopped in front of her and reached out her little arms, wanting to be held. Jennifer picked her up, and automatically the other 4 moved closer, wanting attention too. Within minutes, she was sitting on the floor with 5 babies around her, all trying to climb into her lap at once. It was chaotic, it was exhausting, but it was also the purest, most genuine thing she'd experienced in a long time. I love you, she whispered to them. No matter how you got here, I love you more than anything. It was then that Michael came home from work. She heard his voice in the living room talking to Mrs. Barbara, and then his footsteps approaching the bedroom. He knocked lightly on the door. Jennifer, can I come in? You can, she answered, not moving from the floor. Michael opened the door and found her surrounded by the 5 children. The sight made him smile, despite the tension between them. How was your day? He asked cautiously. Educational, she replied. I had an interesting visitor today. From her tone, Michael immediately knew something had happened. What kind of visitor? Stephanie Johnson, said Jennifer, watching his reaction. Michael instantly paled. Stephanie came here? She did, confirmed Jennifer, and she told me some very interesting things about how you planned all of this. Michael sat on the bed, looking defeated. What did she say? That you manipulated the timing of the births to coincide with my wedding, that you documented the entire pregnancy planning the day you'd introduce me to them, that you knew about my wedding 6 months ago and orchestrated everything so I'd have no choice. Jennifer, is it true? She interrupted. Michael was silent for a long moment. It's true, he finally admitted. All of it, he confirmed. Every detail was planned. From the moment I found out about your wedding, I started planning how to stop it. Jennifer nodded slowly, as if a final puzzle piece had fallen into place. Thank you for your honesty, she said. Finally. Jennifer, I know it seems terrible. It seems terrible because it is terrible, Michael, she said calmly. You manipulated my life, manipulated 5 innocent lives, manipulated a day that should have been special for me, all to get what you wanted. I just wanted our family back. He defended himself. No, she corrected, you wanted to control me. You wanted to force me into a situation where I'd have no choice but to stay with you. The children, sensing the tension in the air, began to grow restless. Ava started crying, which made Sophia cry too. They're feeling our argument, Jennifer observed, picking up Ava to soothe her. Michael stood up and took Sophia, rocking her gently. Jennifer, what do you want me to do? He asked. How can I fix this? I don't know if you can, she answered honestly. You violated my trust in so many ways that I don't even know where to begin trying to forgive you. But will you try? He asked hopefully. Jennifer looked at their 5 children, then at him. I'm going to therapy, she finally said. I'll seek professional help to process all of this. Can I go with you? No, she replied. First, I need to understand my own feelings. Then maybe we can try couples therapy. And in the meantime? In the meantime, we'll keep living in the same house for the children's sake. But I want it clear that we're not a normally functioning couple. We're on a break. Michael nodded, clearly disappointed but trying to accept it. For how long? For as long as it takes, she replied. And Michael, yes? If I find out you've hidden or lied about anything else, if there's one more surprise like this, I'm leaving and taking the children with me. That's my ultimatum. Understood, he said. I promise there's nothing else. Your promises mean nothing to me now, she said coldly. But for our daughter's sake, I hope you're telling the truth this time. The weeks that followed were the hardest of Jennifer's life. She began therapy with Dr. Rebecca, an experienced psychologist specializing in relationships and trauma. How do you feel about Michael now? Dr. Rebecca asked during one session. Confused, Jennifer admitted. On one hand, I see that everything he did was out of love. On the other, I see it was manipulation and obsession. It can be both at the same time, the therapist noted. Obsessive love is still obsession. But how do you tell real love from obsession? Real love respects boundaries, Dr. Rebecca explained. Real love wants what's best for the other person, even if that means letting them go. Obsession wants possession, control. And what Michael did was obsession. What do you think? Jennifer thought for a moment. I think it was obsession disguised as love, she finally said. Because if it were real love, he would have respected my decision to end the relationship. And how do you feel about the children? The children are the easiest part of all this, Jennifer replied, smiling for the first time in the session. I love them unconditionally. No matter how they were conceived, they're my children. And does that complicate your decision about Michael? Very much, she admitted, because leaving Michael means breaking up a family, and I always dreamed of having a complete family. But is a family built on lies really complete? The question echoed in Jennifer's mind for days. At home, the routine continued. Michael tried hard to be the perfect husband and father, taking care of the kids, helping around the house, being attentive to Jennifer. But there was a distance between them that felt insurmountable. One night, as Jennifer bathed the girls, Michael appeared at the bathroom door. Can I help? He offered. You can grab the towels, she replied without looking at him. They worked in silence, each tending to a child. It was efficient, but there was no closeness. Jennifer, he said when they finished, I miss talking to you. We do talk, she answered, drying Emma off. No, we exchanged practical information about the children, he corrected. I miss actually talking. About us, about our feelings, about the future. Jennifer stopped what she was doing and looked at him. Michael, every time we try to talk about our feelings, I find out you lied or left out something important. I don't know what to believe anymore. Believe in me, he said desperately. Believe me when I say I love you and that I want our family to work. Your love scares me, she confessed, because now I know just how far you're willing to go for it. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Yes, it is, Michael, she interrupted, because love that doesn't respect boundaries isn't healthy love. It's possessiveness. Michael fell silent, clearly hurt, but with no arguments to defend himself. What do I need to do to earn back your trust? He finally asked. I don't know, she answered honestly. Maybe time, maybe therapy, maybe nothing will be enough. Are you thinking of leaving me? Jennifer looked him in the eyes. I'm thinking about all the possibilities, she said, including that one. 2 months after starting therapy, Jennifer was feeling clearer about her emotions. The routine with their 5 children had stabilized, and she had learned to recognize each of their individual personalities. Emma was truly the most affectionate, always wanting to be held and given attention. Ethan was the most independent, playing alone for hours. Olivia was the smartest, already trying to mimic sounds and gestures. Sophia was the most observant, quietly studying everything around her. Ava was the most artistic, always making everyone smile with her facial expressions. One afternoon, while the children napped, Jennifer decided to have a serious talk with Michael. We need to talk, she said, finding him in the garage where he was fixing an old bike. About what? He asked, setting down his tools. About our future, she replied. We can't stay in this limbo forever. Michael followed her to the porch, where they sat in the rocking chairs his parents had bought especially for them to relax in after exhausting days with the babies. I've thought a lot about everything that happened, Jennifer began. About your lies, your manipulations, and what it all means for us. Did you come to any conclusions? I did, she confirmed. Michael, I still love you. I probably always will. You were my first true love, the father of my children. His face lit up with hope. But, she continued, I don't know if I can ever trust you again. And without trust, there can't be a marriage. Jennifer, please. Let me finish, she said. I've decided to give you one chance. Just one. What does that mean? It means we're going to couples therapy. It means you'll have to work hard to earn back my trust. It means any lie, no matter how small, will end our relationship for good. I accept all your conditions, he said quickly. And it also means, she went on, that we're rebuilding our relationship from scratch. Like we're just getting to know each other again. How so? How so means we're dating again, she explained. You'll have to win me back. Show me you've changed, that you can be trusted, that you understand what you did wrong. For how long? As long as it takes, she replied. It could be 6 months, it could be 2 years. That's up to you. Michael nodded, clearly relieved to have a chance. And the kids? The kids remain our priority, she said. No matter what happens between us, they'll always have 2 parents who love them. Thank you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Don't thank me yet, she warned, because it's going to be hard. I'm not going to pretend everything's fine just to keep up appearances. I understand. And Michael? Yes? If you truly love me, if you really want our family to work, you'll go to individual therapy too. You need to understand why you did what you did and how to avoid repeating those obsessive behaviors. I already scheduled it, he said. I start next week. Jennifer looked at him, surprised. You already made an appointment? I scheduled it 2 weeks ago, he admitted, because I realized I need to work on myself no matter what happens between us. It was the first thing he'd done without her having to ask, and that gave Jennifer a small glimmer of hope. The rebuilding process was slow and sometimes painful. In couples therapy, many hard truths came out. Michael had to face the fact that his behaviors had been obsessive and manipulative. Jennifer had to work on her ability to forgive and trust again. What hurts you the most about all this? Dr. Rebecca asked during a joint session. The feeling that my autonomy was violated, Jennifer answered. It feels like he used my own body, through my genetic material, to manipulate me. Michael, how do you feel hearing that? Michael was visibly shaken. I feel horrible, he admitted. I never thought of it that way, but I understand why she feels like that. And what would you like to say to Jennifer about it? That I'm so sorry, he said, looking directly at her. That I know I violated your trust in an almost unforgivable way. That I understand why you feel betrayed. And how do you plan to earn that trust back? By being completely transparent from now on, he replied. No lies, no omissions, no manipulations, even if the truth is inconvenient or uncomfortable. Jennifer, is that enough for you? It's a start, she said. But words are easy. I'll need to see real changes in his behavior. 6 months after starting couples therapy, Jennifer was surprised to realize she was beginning to trust Michael again. Small things. He always said where he was going and with whom, arrived when he promised, included her in every decision about the children. The children themselves were growing and developing more distinct personalities. Emma was definitely the most social, always smiling at strangers. Ethan had started walking before his sisters and explored everything. Olivia talked the most, trying to imitate words. Sophia was the most cautious, observing everything before acting. Ava was the most artistic, always finding creative ways to play. One night, after putting all 5 to bed, Jennifer and Michael sat in the living room to watch a movie, something they hadn't done in a long time. "How do you feel about us now?" Michael asked during a commercial break. "Better," she admitted. "More hopeful." "Hopeful about what?" "About the possibility of us actually becoming a family," she said. "A healthy, honest family." "I feel that way too," he said. "And Jennifer?" "Yes?" "Thank you for not giving up on us. Thank you for doing the work to deserve a second chance." They went back to watching the movie, but now they were sitting closer on the couch. It wasn't physical intimacy yet, but it was emotional closeness. A year after the incident at the church, Jennifer woke up early on a Saturday morning and found Michael in the kitchen making breakfast for the whole family. All 5 children were in high chairs, eating chopped fruit and making the typical mess of 2-year-olds. "Good morning," she said, lightly kissing each child's forehead. "Good morning," Michael replied, handing her a cup of coffee. "Sleep well?" "I did," she said. "And you?" "Me too." It was a simple, everyday conversation, but it represented something they had lost and regained: normalcy. "Michael," she said, sitting at the table, "I have something to tell you." He immediately tensed up, remembering all the difficult conversations they'd had. "What is it?" "Relax," she said, laughing at his expression. "It's something good." "Oh, okay," he replied, clearly relieved. "What is it?" "I'm ready," she said simply. "Ready for what?" "To be truly married again," she explained. "To share a bedroom, to be close again, to be a complete family." Michael's face lit up as if it were Christmas. "Really?" "Really," she confirmed. "You've done the work, truly changed, earned back my trust. I'm ready to move forward." Michael stood up and hugged her, careful not to startle the kids. "I love you so much," he whispered. "I love you too," she replied, "and this time it's a love built on truth, trust, and mutual respect." "It's so much better this way," he agreed. "And Michael?" "Yes?" "Remember those 10 eggs still frozen at the clinic?" He smiled, knowing where this was going. "I do. I think it's time we think about the next baby," she said. "But this time I'll carry it, and this time we'll plan everything together, no secrets. How many do you want?" "How about we start with 1 at a time?" she suggested, laughing. 5 babies at once taught me I can handle anything, but also that I don't need to complicate things." "1 at a time sounds perfect," he agreed. And so, 2 years after the day she was supposed to marry Brandon, Jennifer finally had the family she'd always dreamed of. Not in the way she'd planned, not without struggles and challenges, but in a way more honest and real than she'd ever imagined possible. The 5 children ran around the backyard of their new house, their laughter filling the air. Michael had landed a better job and paid off all their debts. Jennifer had gone back to work part-time, finding balance between her career and motherhood. And that fall she discovered she was pregnant again, this time completely naturally, unexpected yet planned all at once. "How should we tell the girls they're getting a little brother?" Michael asked, his hand resting on Jennifer's still flat stomach. "I think they'll be happy," she replied. "Especially Emma. She's always wanted to be the responsible big sister." "And you? How do you feel?" "I feel complete," she answered. "Finally, truly complete." The end. now. Tell us what you thought of this heartwarming story. Do you believe Jennifer made the right choice giving Michael a second chance? Share your honest thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more touching stories.